Okay, so let's start. All right, so my name is Thomas Lacroix. Nice to meet you for this semester, and I'm going to teach you this course on geopolitics of migration. Before I start to addressing the nitty-gritty of things, a few words about me. I'm a researcher, I'm a TNRS researcher. As you can see on the PowerPoint, I'm not a web designer at all. That's pretty much what I can do with PowerPoint. So sorry in advance, no shiny PowerPoint for you to show. And I'm a researcher and I'm not a teacher, and I'm French, so also sorry for my broken English. I'll do my best. So I might hesitate and use wrong words, especially after 2 hours talking. Housekeeping things. This course is taking place here, but it's also recorded for some of you, a bunch of you who cannot make it for this semester for some reason. So the course will be recorded. So which means that if you had any questions to ask, any comments, raise your hand, and I will have to give you the mic, right? So that your voice can be recorded as well. Right. What else? About me, I've been working on migration in its different aspects for the last 25 something years. My basic field of expertise is transnationalism. It is to say the relations that the migrants maintain with their origin country or other countries. So all kinds of socialities, remittances, projects, what you could call diaspora, the building of community building across the borders. That's my core area of expertise. But with time, as you know, some researchers expand their interest towards various issues, various field studies, and now I'm more and more interested in not migration policies, but on the impacts of migration policies and migration on the building of a state. I'm a geographer. I'm not a political scientist. I'm not a geopolitist. So I'm not an expert of the state. So my considerations, my point of view, my standpoint is the one of a geographer on something, an object, which is usually addressed by people like. Okay, there is no coming. So I will have to sit down and take another microphone. Okay, so people like that are expert of political sciences, which is not really my case, but yeah, I'll try to make my best. So for this, so it's okay, yeah? Huh? Yeah, it's working. It seems to work. Yeah. But it comes on and off, so I don't know why. So. No. I think it's loud enough. It's okay, thank you. Yeah. For this introduction, I suppose that you all have different levels of knowledge about migration. What is a migrant? Some of you may have some experience of some kind of as a migrant. Probably most of you had an experience of migration. Possibly you had been students somewhere else, or you had lived as a child somewhere else. You also might have an experience as, for example, some of you may have been committed or involved in an organization supporting refugees, or have worked somehow with some migrants. But others, some of you have hardly any experience. So I will just use this opportunity of this introduction to talk about the very basic levels of what is a migrant, right? But starting from there, what I also want to show you is that migration is what we call as researchers a total social phenomenon. It touches upon any aspect, any dimension of social life, as gender, identity, economy, politics, subjectivity, infrastructure, movement, mobility. Take any of your topic, any keyword, migration is somewhere there. And I'll try to use this course to invite you to readdress what you know about things, about concepts, about your perspective on the social life, but to add a new lens, the lens of the migrants, a transnational lens. And there is something which is specific with migration. Migrants move, migrants cross border. They don't live in the place where they were born. And in that sense, they also kept and experienced contacts. Yeah, it's coming back. And so their life and these social processes that they are involved in cross the borders. So what is a state? What is a territory? What is a political action? Dealing with these people who cross the territory, cross the border. A state, it's normally, you probably know about the definition of a state. It's a political apparatus, it's a population, and it's a territory. Okay, so classically, when you talk about a state, you talk about apparatus. It's really this thing. Okay. When you talk about the state, you will talk about a government implementing laws, addressing a population which is in a specific territory, which is not really the case when we talk about migration. So I will invite you to reconsider what a state can be when addressing this thing. I will invite you to reconsider what a society is when we consider social life beyond the borders. So I would like to use this course to entice you to revise your look upon social theory at large. So it would be interesting also to reconsider objects which has nothing to do with migration, like the state, under a new lens. All right. More to come. First, as I said, let's start with the basics. Okay, what is a migrant? So, a migrant, the word migrant, has different layers of meanings. There is the meaning of the everyday language. What is a migrant in the everyday language? A response could be open Google or open whatever web crawler you want and type migrant. And see, let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Migrant. Okay. Image. Right. That's what you get. That's the general perception of the public as translated by this web crawler, about a migrant. It is to say, kind of foreigners, black foreigners, coming en masse, crossing the border and the Mediterranean illegally. That's the common perception of what a migrant is, right? So that also comes from another layer of meaning, which is migration as a political category, as the term migrant is used by the policymakers, right? As a foreigner, the other, the barbaric other, coming here to encroach on our daily life, coming from outside the territory and infringing and on the daily life. Yeah, you can get a question here. You need a phone, sorry.
But when you say from a policy perspective that the migrant is the other and sometimes the barbaric other, that's very much a contemporary perspective, correct? If we think of, like for example, French in the 70s, where you need migrants to build the factories and everything, it's the productive others that you need for society, not necessarily barbaric, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's why there are several layers of meanings. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm talking about now, and more specifically of the meaning of this layer that emerged and was consolidated since 2015, the mid-2000s. So it's a political category which is used in the policy narratives, but it's not only that. It's also a scientific concept. It's a concept, it's a word that we as researchers use, right? Before that, we were talking a lot about the immigrants, the emigrants. I will come back to these terms. And in France, we were talking a lot about the travailleurs immigrés. The guest worker in English, the Gastarbeiter in German. So associating closely the migrant with work, with an economic dynamic, with an economic partition of the world between the labor countries and the labor poor countries, with these flows going from labor-rich countries to labor-poor countries. Labor-poor countries also being capital. I mean, I'm talking in the term of the classical economy. So migrants, people, it's Adam Smith who was the first to give a kind of scientific meaning to the term migrant as an economic actor. So in the beginning, we were considering migration as the outcome of economic forces, and the migrants as determined by these economic forces, as an object, subjected to these broader global forces. So migration made by the economy. But since the 90s and the early 2000s, we observed that migration and the migrants were more than that, much more than one. They were endowed with agency. They were following their own objectives, their own purpose. So not only as actors that were completely subjective to external forces, but also motivated by their own objectives. Also, with the classical understanding of the travailleur immigré, we were thinking migration as someone going from A to B, from Algeria to France, from Mexico to the US, from, I don't know, Indonesia to Australia, right? Labor-poor country to another labor-rich country. But now we are considering more and more migrants as people going from A to B to C, going back to A, then going to D, and circulating more. So we need another word to characterize this actor, this agent. And that's what we started to use the term migrants. The migrants being, as opposed to the immigré, not someone being passive, but someone being active. So you see that there is also a scientific history behind the concept. Right. So another layer of meaning. The everyday, the science, the political. I've been very quick on the political side because we are going back to it throughout the course again and again. So it's somehow also an administrative category. So a category used by the administration. This becomes more complicated. So being a migrant is not a status. It is not an administrative status, okay? From the administrative perspective, you are either a national or a foreigner. These are administrative perspective. On your ID, there is a citizenship. So you are either a national or a foreigner. You're not from an administration. The state doesn't say you are a migrant. They do not use this term, right? But it becomes an administrative category when you have with the visa. And with the visa, you get a whole series, a whole range of different statuses according to the reason why you have migrating. If you are what we call a forced migrant, if you have fled your country of origin, you are a refugee. That's the administrative category for these forced migrants. And you get subcategories of refugees according to the reason why you fled your origin country. Either for political reasons, for environmental reasons, for if you moved within the border, so you are an internally displaced person. That's the forced migration. And the other broader category of migrant statuses, of visa, is the volunteer migrants. And the volunteer migrants, once again, you can be a labor migrant, so you will have a labor visa. H-1B, for if you are a highly skilled migrant in the US, you will have a H-1B visa. It's one example of this kind of visa. If you come because you have followed your partner, then you will have a visa, a family status, family reunification. As a student, you also have a specific form of visa, entitling according to the country where you reside, different rights and duties. Some students in some countries might have the right to work a little bit. Some in other countries, they don't have any right to work. Well, it depends, right? Okay, so from an administrative perspective, being a migrant is a generic term. It's a generic term covering different situations, either forced or volunteer migrants, and all these subcategories. Okay, so We talked about the perception from the people. We talked about the perception from the researchers, from the policymakers, from the bureaucrats. One last way of considering the term migrant is to ask to the migrant themselves. Who is a migrant? What is a migrant from a subjective perspective? First of all, it's a bit strange, but maybe you can. Who is a migrant here? From here? Yeah. Okay. So I suppose that you do not wake up every day saying to yourself, "Oh, I'm a migrant." So actually, people rarely, very rarely consider themselves as a migrant. It's very rare. Remember, I worked a little bit on the Polish workers in the UK. Oh, no, I'm not a migrant, I've just come here to work. Okay, right. So the migrant in general is always the other, but still. Okay, if we go a bit further, what is specific to be a migrant as opposed to be a non-migrant? Well, I would say, from this perspective, that being a migrant is to have a part of his life somewhere else, abroad, or in another area. Yeah, that's another bracket I forgot to mention. You can be an internal migrant. You don't have to cross a border to be a migrant. Okay, you can also. Migrant is, I will come to the overall definition, but you can be an internal migrant. But still, there is a part of your social life and you've been socialized somewhere else. And this affects your condition of being. A part of your brain is plugged to the now and here. But there is another part of your brain which is plugged somewhere else. Always. Think about your parents, your place of worship, where you were socialized as a child. I don't know, whatever you want. So that's the duality, this permanent duality that imbues your daily experience, that for me characterize a migrant. That's the plurality of the condition of the being of the migrant. That's super important, very, very important. Because, as we will see, these conditions, agency, the capacity of the migrant to play on at different levels at the same time. But it's also a burden, especially when you're belonging to somewhere else is perceived negatively here and now. So it's an asset, it's something that kind of, it adds to your perception of as a human being, but it also can be so a migrant, okay? So you see there are different ways of defining, characterizing what is a migrant. It's a complex term, very extremely complicated. But the term migrant is a generic term that covers all these different layers of meanings. So the basic definition of a migrant, that's the way you can understand it, that kind of is an overarching definition, is someone who is living in a place of residence. Oh, no, sorry. A migrant is someone who has changed of place of residence for more than, according to the UN, a year. Why a year? Because under a year, according to the UN, you are likely more a tourist, not a migrant. So there is a temporality in the becoming of the migrants. Okay? There is a slide with the definitions. right. Someone who changes his or her country. You can read? It's large enough? No, you can't. You can't. I'm sorry, I don't know how to get it bigger. I will read it. Okay, someone who changes his or her country of usual residence, irrespective of the reason for migration or legal status. So it's really a generic term. Generally, a distinction is made between short-term or temporary migration, covering movements with a duration between 3 and 12 months. A long-term or residence migration referring to a change of country of residence for a duration of 1 year or more. Okay? You don't have to take a photo of it because it will be on the Moodle. And I don't want you to there is a whole series of definitions here. Okay, is that clear? So do you understand now the, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Are we only talking about international migrants or are we also considering internal migrants?
Oh, you can come here. Sorry.
So are we specifically talking about international migrants or should we also include internal migration in this definition?
So according to the UN, it's referring to the change of country. So no, the last part of the definition hints at international migrants. So referring to a change of country of residence for a duration of 1 year or more. Of course, because if you are internal migrants or internally displaced person, it's immediate. You don't have this time limit from the perspective of the state of the place of residence. If you change of country, of region, of area, if you change of city, for example, you were in Grenoble and you move to Paris, you will be an internal migrant, but you will be immediately in. You don't have to wait for 1 year. You see what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. There is another. Sorry. You want to ask a question? Oh, no, you had your head. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So, is one of these terms need clarification? Let me know. Refugee, it's okay. Refugee is someone who has left his country. It's a forced migrant for political reasons or for because a forced migrant is someone who is leaving his place of residence because he cannot live anymore in this place. While a volunteer migration is someone who is leaving his place of residence because he wants to go to somewhere else. So a refugee is two things. It's a fact, so it's someone who is a forced migrant. It's also a status. It's a status which is delivered and defined by the HCR and delivered by the political authorities of the country of arrival. So you have a card saying you are a refugee. Okay, so it's both. You can be a refugee because you are a forced migrant. That's a daily. Oh, it's coming back. So at the everyday life, a refugee, when you talk about refugees, you talk about forced migrants. But from an administrative perspective, it's a status. You get a card of refugee. Okay, so you get two different layers of meanings. Asylum seeker, you see what an asylum seeker is? The difference between an asylum seeker and a refugee. It's clear? No? Okay, I will tell you anyway. Asylum seeker is someone who is asking for a status of refugee. Someone arriving in a new country and saying, okay, I have fled my country, I want to be recognized as a refugee. So he will file a claim and will become the time for him to be recognized officially as a refugee. He will have a status of asylum seeker. Okay? So it's very kind of intermediary status. Ooh. What was that? It's me? No? It's you? Okay. So easier. It's the difference on between emigration and immigration. It's okay? I think it doesn't need clarification. I had some... What it's me? Hein? Ah, c'est... Ok, d'accord. Okay. All right, so difference between immigration and immigration. Internally displaced person, so it's a forced migrant, but internally he has not change of country. Labor migration, it's someone who has left his country because he wants to get a job in another country. So he's moving for professional purposes. So that's a labor migration. So it's a fact, and it's also a status. You can have a card, a visa of labor migrants. So entitling you with the possibility to work. Environmental migrants, we will talk about that later, but it's... do you know about the environmental migrants? So it's migrants who has left his place of residence for environmental reasons. Environmental degradation, climate change, floodings, whatever you name it, but caused by the environment, right? The thing is that it's only in the everyday language. It's also a policy category. It's used by the policymakers in their narratives, but it's not an administrative status. You cannot have a card of environmental migrants. It doesn't exist. Okay. Yeah. So you get also in the daily narrative, in the daily perception, of subcategories of environmental migrants. You get climate change migration caused by climate change, but you also, the environmental migrant is broader. It also includes people who has left because of earthquake, for example. So it's a broader category than the one of climate change migration. But yeah, we can talk about that. All right, so that's migration as a different dynamic. Okay. So now we'll come to the problematic of this course is how to consider seriously migration when we talk and these relations, how it impacts and how it affects our perception of social theory. So this toolbox, the conceptual toolbox that we use to understand the world as it is, right? How it impacts the terms like the concept of geopolitics, of actor, of action, of territory, society, of the state, and so on and so forth. That's what I started to talk about at the very beginning of this course. So there is this strange word that I used at the very beginning. I said I introduced myself as an expert of transnationalism, right? Or it is to say of the life of the migrants as they live it on different countries at the same time, right? So beyond borders. And some authors like Nina Glick-Schiller and Andreas Wimmer, they said transnationalism towards a strong implicit in the social theory is that something which is unquestioned if you read Bourdieu, if you read Max Weber, if you read Émile Durkheim, if you read, I don't know, Talcott Parsons, they all think about social processes within a state, even if they don't mention it. It's always within a state. And this perception is even consolidated, comforted by, for example, the use of statistics. Statistics, in the very term statistics, you've got stata, state, and comes from state. Okay? It's numbers measuring, monitoring social processes within a state. So we think within this box. But, so that's what they call methodological nationalism. That's a key implicit of social theory. And if you start thinking about the life of the migrants, then methodological nationalism becomes a problem, because the life of the migrants is not encapsulated on a state territory. So, so that's why we try to reconsider a number of things in these courses. And first thing that we talk about is, well, the concept of society. Actors, society, and the state. And that's the three major issues that we will address in this introduction. A quick word on geopolitics, as an example. Maybe some of you, because it's in the title of this course, so it's important. Do you know any of this definition of a geopolitic? What is geopolitics? How it is defined? For example, Yves Lacoste, does it ring a bell for you? No, you don't know Yves Lacoste? Okay, Yves Lacoste is one of the founders of the French School of Geopolitics, and he says, okay, geopolitics, it's about a competition of the representation of a territory on a given space. So the Middle East conflict, you got the Israeli government who had a representation of what the territory of Israel should be, and the Palestinian authorities who had another imagination and a representation of what and they don't agree with each other, so there is a geopolitical contestation. The same with, I don't know, the surge of regionalism, the Basque Country, for example, I don't know, the independence movement. They have a representation of a state that they would like to want in a portion of space which is already occupied by a given political authority who has another imagination of this land, right? But it's always about the a representation, an idea, a forces, a political apparatus, which is produced by the man and imposed on a specific bounded space, right? It's always about bounded spaces, about states, production of states, okay? Another classical definition of geopolitics, it's a competition between states about the limited resources on the planet. That's something you can find since the early 20th century in the German School of Geopolitics, the Lebensraum, the espace vital, vital space. I don't know how to translate it into English. Okay, so yeah, but here it's not about that. We want to address a state who has to deal not with a population which is on a given territory, but on a population that circulates, that moves, that have activities here and there. So it has to deal with flows that crosses its own space, its own territory. So we have to deal with a state that will have to project its own capacity of action beyond its territory, beyond its borders. If you want to influence migration flows starting from another state, then you will have to develop an entire policy outside of the limit of your territory. So what is this kind of state? Acting beyond its border. Have you seen such a thing? Have you seen something like that? That's why you need another idea of a state. And that's what we will see with the concept of the transnational state. The state acting transnationally, beyond its borders. Let's go on with the term of, so it will, for that you will need another conception of geopolitics. It's not only about the state fighting or struggling to impose its own power on a given land. It's a state trying to deteriorate, I hate this word, I'm sorry, deterritorialize its own action beyond its borders. So here, geopolitics has another meaning, another layer of meaning. It's not about controlling a given space, it's about controlling flows, and it's about the circulation of power. So for me, we will see, when I talk about geopolitics of migration, I'm talking about the possibility for a given political authority to control flows and circulation, and to project its own authority somewhere else, far away. Right, so geopolitics in that sense is about the circulation of power. Right, all right, so actors, action, society, the state, I'm starting, all right. Let's deal with another key concept, which is the one of society. All right, so I've given you here on these slides different approaches of what a society is. So Giddens, Anthony Giddens, the British sociologist, sure you know at least his name, has this kind of very bottom-up approach. So for him, he starts trying to think about a society which is built up by the daily activities, practices of the actors. From you, what you will do, the way you dress, the way you interact with your friends, with who, the way you find a job, and so on and so forth. So when you're involved as a citizen, and so on and so forth. All these activities that are buzzing around all the time end up by producing what we call a society. So very bottom-up approach. So for him, it's the agents is a rational, purposive, and reflexive actors. Purposive, he has the capacity through its own action to change and to affect and to consolidate or to transform the social structures that surround him. Okay? Pierre Bourdieu has a more top-down approach. I don't know if you are familiar with his approach. He talks about the agent also as a rational actors, endowed with the different forms of capital. Social capital, cultural capital, economic capital, symbolic capital, whatever you name it, okay? And with this capital, he will make the best of it in order to achieve its own purposes. To find a job, to find a spouse, and so on and so forth, right? And his purposes are themselves conditioned by its collective habitus, the class habitus. So the way we do things in a given social milieu, in a social class, okay? Or if he's a religious person, the way we do things according to the religious school in which he's embedded. So here we got the more, but for him what is important is, as a society, he has a different model. He thinks that the key is absolutely central. He thinks much more than Giddens. Giddens is all bottom-up. It changes all the time. For him, for Bourdieu thinks that the state, he has a very Marxist understanding of the state. According to Marx, the state is a political apparatus which is here to support and implement the interest of the ruling class. And for Bourdieu, he has this culture, Marxist culture, and he thinks that the state is here to produce the different social milieux, the social fields, by allocating the symbolic capital. So, for example, the cultural class. He thinks that the cultural policy of a given state, with the support of theaters, of festivals, of will also define the milieu of the artistic milieu of a given country. And the same with, through the schools, through different tools, he will support the emergence of given social fields. Right. So he has also very centralist and very French, actually, understanding of what a state is. Habermas is something which is in between. Jürgen Habermas, so the German philosopher, has an understanding which is more a meso level, and he will put the emphasis on the civil society. He's much more interested in the civil society. So Giddens is really interested in the social actor, Bourdieu in more or less the state, and Habermas is very interested in the social science, in the civil society. So for him, a society is different. I've here a schema. So you think there are three essential components within a society. And there is a political apparatus with the party system, with the different elites, the different forms of elite, and so on and so forth, competing for the power in a given society, right? So, which includes voting, but not only, right? You get the field of economic relations, entrepreneurs, businesses, that are mediated by economic exchanges, right? And you got the field of interpersonal relations, the daily relations between actors, okay? And that's the civil society, the associations, the organizations, that make sure that the three different fields communicate with each other, that there will interrelations and common understanding between the different parts of a society, right? So the civil society here is kind of the social glue that enables a society to emerge and to function properly. There is another important aspect of a society that is also kind of intersubjective glue. So for him, Bourdieu, I talked about another form of intersubjective understanding of what should be done, which is the habitus. So what you should do as, I don't know, a member of your class or whatever. The way of being, doing, etc., thinking, etc. And Habermas has a similar concept, which is not habitude, but the life world, which he borrows this term. I don't know if you have done some philosophy from from the phenomenology. And so the life world is a shared understanding of the world. So a society is held together by a shared understanding of the world, which is produced by the different interaction between the components of a society, right? So that's the three forms of addressing a society, Bourdieu, Guinness, and all of them is really territorially based. It's a bonded system of different components, different social fields, right? And which is held together either by institutions or by intersubjective layer of common understanding of the world, right? Common culture, you could say. But it's always really bonded within the territory, right? So that's three examples of understanding a society, but which is largely imbued by this methodological nationalism that we talked about, okay? So, yeah, all right. That's a slide I forgot to add. So now, let's try to think about a society which is not bounded by these special limits. Living in a given society, who are part of a given society, but also have their brain and their activities, they're a part of their social life, a parallel life, which is plugged somewhere else. So you are part of a family. That's the, so you're in the field of interpersonal relations. You are part of a family, and some of the members of your family live somewhere else. Okay, so your parents, your uncles, a part of your family tree live in another country. If you are an entrepreneur, you have open, I don't know, a grocery, or you have open, I don't know, an oil olive oil business. You're selling olive oil, but a part of your capital, the money, comes from somewhere else, or the part of the product that you're selling in your shop come from somewhere else. So you have or some of your business partners, they live somewhere else, right? So you can imagine also being part of an organization, an association. So I forgot to introduce Angela, just really quickly. Angela Breton, who is my TA. So you have to communicate with her for the assignment and other things. So she has to go now, but yeah, just wanted to make sure that you are identified.
Thank you.
See you later.
Nice to see you.
Right. Okay, so the very fact that, okay, let's talk about so you are a member of an association, a civil society organizations, whose members are also, or where the headquarters of this association is somewhere else, right? It's not here. You are a member of a given church whose leaders, or Muslim Brotherhood, whose leaders are not here, they are somewhere else. I don't know, an example. You are Senegalese. The Mourid Brotherhood, the headquarters of the Mourid Brotherhood are in Touba, in the city of Touba in Senegal. If you are a member from Sri Lanka, a member of the Tamil Tigers, then the part of your leadership will be in Sri Lanka. Or if you are a Kurdish activist, some of your leadership will be in Iraq or Turkey or else, right? So you will be immediately embedded in a broader field, either through your family linkages or your business linkages or your citizenship or your forms of politics. Here you got another image of a social system that emerged and which is deterritorialized. It's not contained within the same territory. Okay? So here emerges an image of a social which is, yeah, you think it's better? Yeah. And this one, what about this one? Okay, I will sit down. Right, so you've got here a model of a social formation which is deterritorialized and that we could call a transnational society. Okay, that's a transnational society. So you get a first idea of a state which is a transnational state acting beyond its border and in relation with a form of society which is a transnational society. Okay? So that's the... and another specificity of this transnational society is that because your partners and your friends and your colleagues do not necessarily live here, but you have engagement with them. Either you work together, you have projects together, you have contacts or friendly relations with them. Because of that, your interactions, your social interactions reproduce flows, cross-border flows. You send money, it's going to be a flow of money crossing the borders. You want to set up a project, for example, you want to set up together a business, you will have, it will entail necessarily flows of informations. It might also entail the flows of people themselves. So these social relations will also produce migration. You live in a country, you say, okay, I'm safe here, I live well, I've found a job. Why? And he calls his nephew or his uncle and say, oh yeah, why don't you come and join me? It will produce migration. Or also, I don't know, if you want to set up a transnational business with a partner selling olive oil from Morocco and you want to sell this olive oil in France, then it will entail business visits. So circulation of businessmen. So it will, transnational social life, at the core of this social life, it will entail three forms of flows: flows of people, flows of money, four forms of goods, flows of people, flows of money, and flows, people, money, IDs, and goods. Okay? People, money, IDs, and goods. So you get these four forms of flows. So when you think transnational society, you think flows, right? So if there is something that the state, the transnational state, is interested in, is to control and to make sure that these flows are okay for them, right? So the purpose of a transnational state is not to control and to manage a population on a given space. It is what it is interested in is to control, constrain, or encourage flows of people, of goods, of money, of IDs, right? Okay. We will see many examples of that, but one key example is when you are a sending state, let's say, okay, Gambia, and you got a strong diaspora abroad. What you want to encourage is the flows of money that the people will send back to home to encourage a development dynamic in Gambia. Okay, so the purpose of the transnational Gambian state will be to enhance, to encourage the flows of money flows, remittances between the diaspora and Gambia, the sending country, right? If you are, but what the Gambian state doesn't want would be, for example, flows of dissident ideas or critical ideas of the role of the government. So imagine that there is a part of the Gambian opposition within the diaspora, criticizing on YouTube, on social media, the action of the Gambian government. What the Gambian government doesn't want would be these flows of ideas getting back on the influencing the Gambian populations. So he's interested in monetary remittances, but he's not interested in the flows of political ideas or this kind of political ideas. So the role of the transnational state, from a state perspective, will be make sure that the flows generated by the transnational society will accord with its own interests, okay? As much as a state, a normal classical Westphalian state, will be to manage the population on a given territory according to its own interest as well, so its political program and so on and so forth, right? Here we got a specific form of state that will manage flows. Sorry, I'm repeating, but I want to make sure that you get the idea, right? Okay, yeah, I will skip this one, but still, what we are talking about now is also, from a different perspective, is the becoming of the state, and here in the globalized era. Sorry. So skip the first part of the slide, but I don't know if you have been interested in your curriculum, in your courses about the becoming of the state within globalization, right? I don't know if you are aware, but there has been a lot of debate, a lot of concern about the relevance of the state within a globalized area. There was a time, not so much now, thinking that there was a kind of zero-sum game between sovereignty and globalization. The more globalization you have, the less sovereign power you will have. So you had, for example, I think it was in the 1999, a book written by a former professor of Sciences Po, Bertrand Bady, who was announcing the end of sovereignty, la fin de la souveraineté. Because now we are living in a globalized era, where you get a lot of flows and a globalized capitalism, a globalized political powers, and the nation state as in its classical form is not relevant anymore. There was this thinking, and but now since the early 2000s, I would say since the collapse of the Twin Towers of in New York and the outbreak of the war in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and since then the whole series of interstate wars up until the war between Ukraine and Russia, there is a resurgence of a return of the state and the return of the Westphalian form of the state. And a return of the relevance of the realist paradigm of interstate relations, of international relations. I hope that I don't have to explain what a realist paradigm is. It's okay? Okay. Right. What I would like to consider now is a new form of relations between globalization, which is still there, and migration it's a key part of globalization, but with the maintaining of strong sovereign states. So thinking a relation between globalization on the one hand and sovereignty on the other hand, which is not a zero-sum game, and what I would like to suggest here is an idea of the state, of the transnational state, which has a relation with a sovereign state. So the state will transnationalize itself, will act beyond its border, will act upon flows that cross its borders, but aligning with a sovereign agenda. If Donald Trump is putting pressure on the Central American states in order to deport the migrants that reside in the US, that's a form of transnationalization. He will put pressure on actors who are beyond its border. So it's a form of transnational action of the state, but it aligns with its own sovereign agenda. So that's something which is would like to think about. There is the transnationalization of the state is compatible with the maintaining of the traditional sovereign states, the Westphalian states. So what is transnationalized here is not the states as a whole, but some section of the state that will enable him to act beyond its border, right? Okay, so here I'm touching upon something which is critical in the definition of the transnational state. So in order to act beyond its border, the state will develop different tools like different agencies, state departments, that will enable him to do that. So here you can see there has been a large search over since the 90s, the late 90s, a number of ministries and state departments dealing with diaspora affairs. So you got, I don't know, the Department of, or the Ministry of Overseas Indian Affairs. That's a ministry in India that deals with the relations with the Indian diaspora. You get the same thing in Senegal, in Mali. You get the same thing in Mexico. You get the same thing in France. You get in France. We also have, for example, MPs representing the French abroad, and this is relatively new. There has been an explosion of this kind of institutions over the last the 3 decades, I would say. The last 30 years, and this is one of the key marks of the development of the transnational state. So you get here sections of the states that develop in order for the state to act beyond its border. Okay, that's a mark of the transnational state. Okay, that's is that clear? So that's my hypothesis in this course that I would like to develop, is that the state now, the transnationalizations of the state, is something which is urged by the sovereign agenda of the nation states, right? And not against its sovereign agenda. So globalization is not dissolving the nation state. That's the contrary now. That's something we, right? So I'm a bit quick here, I think. It's okay. I want to make sure that you get the point. It's okay if you have any doubt, right? I don't want to lose you. Okay? So migration, the transnational society is transforming the state. It's urging the state to adopt. It's also transforming the international relations. It's also affecting, that's another thing I would like to convey for this course. It's affecting international, and it's urging a new form of diplomacy. It's urging a new world order. The immigration states, the state receiving large immigrant flows, are now using the visa as a tool to control the immigration flows, right? And so that, and so they say, okay, this country will need a visa to come here. Senegalese people will need a visa to come to France. Okay, so people from Honduras or Salvadorian will need a visa to go to the US, and so on and so forth. But people from Germany don't need a visa to come to France, or people from Australia, or if you are French, you don't need a visa to go to the US. You just need an ESTA number, and that's it, right? So now there is a kind of new world order for which you get a visa, you get some passports who hardly need any visa to go anywhere else. It's almost a full freedom of circulation around the world. And if you are lucky enough to be Japanese, you will be able to go to 193 countries without a visa. But if you are unlucky enough to be Afghan, you will only have this possibility in 27 countries, right? And if you rank the passport, the value of the passport according to the number of countries where you can go freely, you see that the northern countries will be at the top, while the global south country will be at the bottom. So there is a new partition of the world which is emerging because of the transnational states. of the implementation of the transnational state. And states trying to act on human flows, right? And this entails a new world order. And this will, of course, entail bargaining relations, international relations. It will, you want, for example, Turkey. Turkey, 2015, received large amounts of Syrians. Remember, after the collapse of the Syrian state, more than 1 million of people. And Europe was saying, oh, right, okay, we will help you to keep these Syrians. We don't want these Syrians to come to Europe. So please, Turkish authorities, keep them with them. So Turkish authorities will say, oh, yeah, you want us to keep the Syrians here in Turkey? No problem at all. But in exchange, you will give us, the Turkish citizens, more visa. And you will give us more money. And so on. And you will accelerate the negotiation of the Turkey entering the EU. And so on and so forth. That's bargaining, right? A new form of diplomacy is emerging. Okay? So that's another example. The Italian government signing an agreement with Libya or some Libyan authorities to keep the transit migrants, the sub-Saharan African, in Libya, right? And in exchange, they will give some money to build roads, to build schools, and so on and so forth, to consolidate the administrative capacities of the Libyan state, and so on and so forth. So that's a new form of bargain which is emerging. Another form of diplomacy in, when was it? Sorry, can I click here? Does it work? I think it does work. Okay.
Il suffit de se jeter à l'eau et tous les moyens sont bons, à la nage, sur des bouées de sauvetage ou des bateaux pneumatiques, et même à pied à la faveur de la marée basse. À droite, le Maroc, à gauche, l'Espagne. Des jeunes, des femmes, des enfants, plus de 6000 personnes en quelques heures, dont plus de 1000 mineurs, tous avec la même motivation, l'espoir d'une vie meilleure. Si certains ont réussi leur passage, d'autres patientaient encore pendant la nuit, côté marocain, pour tenter leur chance.
Okay. We are in 2021. Does it ring a bell, this event? So, 2021, December 21, you had thousands of Moroccans who who flowed towards Ceuta and Melilla. Ceuta and Melilla being two Spanish enclaves at the north, in the north of Morocco. Two small cities, which are Spanish cities, within the Moroccan territory. And so there was a convergence of this population of flows of Moroccans who arrive at the gate of these enclaves, saying, "All right, we want and these guys, they all thought that there was a rumor in the Moroccan population that the Melilla and these two enclaves will open the gate, and it will be possible for the Moroccans to go to Spain without any visa. They will open the gate. And they were motivated by a rumor, just a simple rumor. But a few days later, actually, we learned that this rumor was spread by the Moroccan authorities themselves. The police forces, they were saying to people, hey, you should go to Ceuta and Melilla because they will open the gate. So people believed that and started to go to Ceuta and Melilla. And why was that? Why did they start to spread this rumor? It's because a few days before, the Spanish government, the Spanish authorities, had received a leader of the Polisario Front, an old general of the Polisario Front, in one of the Spanish hospitals to get a surgery. The Spanish Polisario Front, for those who do not know it, it's a political party. It's an opposition front claiming for an independent Western Sahara, while the Morocco claims that it's a Moroccan territory. Okay, and Spain, the Spanish diplomacy has always supported the Polisario Front and the possibility of a referendum, which is refuted by the Moroccan authority. So the spreading of this rumor was a retaliation toward the Spanish government for having received one of the general of the Polisario Front in one of the Spanish hospitals. It's a pure diplomatic move. It's a use of migration as a political weapon, as a diplomatic weapon. Right. This is a kind of thing that you have in the nowadays world because of the transformation and the growing importance of migration within state interactions. And you can have many, many, many examples of that, different examples of how migration is contaminating the whole international agenda. All right? This is international relations produced by the surge of the transnational state. Okay? So the transnational state is not only transforming the state itself, it's also transforming state relations. That's what we are going to see in this course. Another example. Right. That's China, who has a kind of tacit agreement with the Swiss government. It's a paper on that, an article. They found out that China is sending state police authorities, to second the Swiss government in its relation with the Chinese population in Switzerland, right? And especially with the identification of potential undocumented workers in Switzerland, right? Chinese undocumented workers. So the problem is that here, from the Swiss perspective, the support of the Chinese authorities is instrumental in its for its control and management of the undocumented workers, Chinese undocumented workers in Switzerland. But from the Chinese perspective, it's a tool for them to approach the Chinese diaspora within Switzerland and to identify who's doing what, and especially with a focus on the Chinese dissidents. Okay, so that's another form of diplomacy which is taking place, in which, on the one hand, you get the receiving state interested in the management of human flows, while in the sending state is interested in the control of dissidents, it is to say, in the control of political flows, political immaterial flows of ideas, the production of dissidents. So that's another form, probably unexpected, but actually this kind of strategies of sending governments trying to control the dissidents abroad has always existed. You get it since the independence times in the 70s, 60s, 50s. You get we will see. We will focus on that, but it can go up to the murder of opponents abroad. It's been the case, for example, with the assassination of an Azeri leaders in France. You get Azeri leaders in opposing to the Azerbaijan government, who had been assassinated in France and Belgium over the last 5 years. I get several of them. They are extremely active, and you get many examples of that around the world. So it's another form of migration diplomacy, of a state trying to act beyond its border to encourage, to tame some unwanted political flows, right? So let's go back. Okay. Any question you might have? So I think it's been a lot to swallow for today for the first course. We talked about the different forms of migration, of migrants, what is a migrant, and then I started to talk about some tedious and complicated things about social theory. What is a state? So what is a society? What is an actor? And so on and so forth. Trying to direct you to, okay, let's take a step behind and think about this same concept, but from a transnational perspective. Here, I'm just opening the debate. I'm just opening the different issues, the different questions that we will address, and we will have 24 hours, well, 22 now, to talk about these different aspects, right? So here is just the title of the main chapters. So if you have missed things, if there are things that you do not understand, it's okay. We will talk about that, and we will take a lot of time to talk about these different aspects. Right? We will. So coming to the structure of this course, first we will talk about the transnational society, how it works, where it works. We will talk about the difference between transnational activities and the formation of diasporas. For example, I'm not sure that you are familiar with the concept, the word of the term diaspora, but I'm not sure you are familiar with the concept of diaspora. How we as researchers, we use it, and what is the difference between transnationalism and diaspora? So that's what we talk about during the third course. And we will talk in the fourth course about the fourth session about the flows, the remittances, the different forms of remittances, the monetary remittances, the social remittances, and so on. So the flows that these transnational communities and diasporas are producing. So that's the idea. And then during the second part of this course, we will talk about the state, how it transforms the state, and how it transforms international relations, right? And the new state interactions, how the transnationalizations of the state is transforming the border as well. We will talk about externalization policies of border control. We will talk about internalization of the border control. So the border control does not only take place abroad or at the border, it takes place here. It takes place all the time within the countries. You probably have seen it with the Trump government acting in Los Angeles, for example. You probably heard about that. So it's also searching to control the population within the territory. So that's what I call the internalization of the border. And then we will talk about migration diplomacy. I've just given you a few examples. So the migration diplomacy of the receiving states, the migration diplomacy of the sending states,
And finally, because a lot of the things that I will talk about are relatively bleak, relatively grim. It's not really a happy course that you have selected here. But we also will talk about imagination, production, resistance. The transnational society is also producing its own form of resistance, alliances between migrants and non-migrants. We will talk about what's going on at the local level, within, for example, the sanctuary cities, the sanctuary universities, within the civil society organizations, and so on and so forth. So the transnational state and its evolution is also producing its form of resistance. Power is always producing counterpower, Foucault. So we will talk about that at the local level. But we will also talk about what is going on and the recent evolutions at the international level, at the level of the UN, the United Nations, trying to find a way to establish, define a global framework for the governance of migration. So we will talk about the Global Compact for Migration, the Global Compact for Refugees, these alliances between civil society organizations at the global level, the cities, and some states, to advance together an agenda to have a more rational approach to migration. That's also something which is happening now. And you will see that's pretty much, it's very interesting, super interesting. You see, there is something which is also, I don't know, very pleasant in the studying migration, is also the interesting also complexity of the things. It's really turn you upside down because, I mean, gosh, we are talking about people who live in 2, 3, 4 spaces at the same time right now. So it's already complicated. We are talking about things that are happening here but have effects there. So we are talking about the local and the global at the same time. And you will see that the politics of migration, it's exactly the same. You've got different scales nested within each other. So you got small organizations talking at the UN level. You've got cities talking at the UN level. You got states talking to small organizations campaigning for migration in, I don't know, far-flung sending areas. So you get things that are completely incredible. But you also have a lot of bleak and very grim action. And we will talk about death at the border and the necropolitics of the migration policies. Death at the border, you already all know about the drowning of the people in the Mediterranean. You probably know about the people dying in the deserts between the US and the Mexico. These are not collateral damage. This is also part of a deliberate policy of the current transnational state. So it's also very, very sad and very grim. So you get two things. It's also what is fascinating with this object of the transnational activities and the transnational social life. It's at the same time, it's completely foreign. We are talking about the other. These migrants crossing the Mediterranean on the boats. Something which is completely foreign to our daily experience. But at the same time, we are talking about things that are completely embedded in your daily experience. You are migrants, you will be migrants, or you have been migrants, or you know migrants. And this the migrants and migration is completely an interesting part of our daily life. So it's both at the same time. It's the foreign and the familiar, the local and the global, the bleak and the creativity and the hybridization and the resistance and the power relations, all at the same time. So it's going to be a pretty loaded program, I know, but I hope that it will be as interesting as it has been for me to to work on these issues. Yeah, so that's the menu for this course. You already have, I suppose, have looked at the syllabi, the different the agenda of. It might change a little bit because it turns out that my teaching assistant, Angela, is also working to some aspect of the transnational society and the transnational state. So I will ask her to present her own work. I was also encouraged by the administration to introduce you to a specific methodology. I will try to, so far it has not been so good, about the method of, I don't know, in French it's cartographie sensible. Sensitive cartography, probably something like that. So, you know, I'm, or critical cartography. Yeah, well, let's call it like that, critical cartography. You know, I'm a geographer, so I do some maps. And one of the things that is important with maps is that, you know, maps congeals, stratifies, consolidates, reifies imagination of space. And I don't know if you have, do you have any map of migration in mind? Very often, when you see a map of migration on the news, at the TV, or in a newspaper, you will see big arrows coming from Africa directly toward Europe, big arrows coming from Central America going to the US, big arrows coming from Southeast Asia towards Japan or Australia, right? Arrows, meaning that we have here an idea of migration as a kind of invasion of people going deliberately from sending countries towards arrival countries. And Frontex love this kind of map, and you will see they use it in order to appeal to and to generate an idea of migration as a threat. But you also have counter-critical geography, who has developed alternative forms of cartographies in order to show migration differently. And one of them, I will show you several of them. Well, I'm trying to contact someone who is a specialist of this kind of things, but so far she has not responded, but I will let you know. But if she can't, I will show you some attempts to produce alternative cartographies, and this is absolutely fascinating what they can do. And in particular, these sensitive cartographies, where the authors try to map the subjectivity of the migrants themselves. They try to map on a map what the migrants feel about their migration, how they feel about their reception or about their routes. The way they go through the borders and their perception of it. So that's new forms of maps, and you will see some of them don't look like map at all, but there are very, very interesting advances on that front as well. So I was asked, and it was, I think, a good suggestion, so I will try to show it to you. What else? Yeah. Maybe I will finish with a question. Yeah. A question that's, I'm not sure I got the answer, but at least we can, it's an observation. I suppose that's, you know, migration 20 years ago, 25 years ago, end of early 2000, late 90s, was hardly an issue. It was not really important. Sciences Po didn't really bother. There was only one specialist of migration teaching at the faculty level at Sciences Po. And for policymakers, migration was important, but was not super important in the career of a civil servant, for example. You do not, or no, it was not really an issue. And it became now, we have courses at Sciences Po and other, you get Master of Migration Studies everywhere, and people get interested in migration, and people get obsessed by migration all the time. I'm not sure why, but it's definitely migration a marker of our times. It's something which has been extremely important and central in many political programs, party programs. Why is that? I'm not sure, because when you know that the number of migrants around the world, ultimately what is considered by a migrant by the UN only concerns 3% of the population. 97% of the population is not a migrant. Lives, all people who live where we are born, more or less, or in the same country where we are born. And it has changed for the last half a century, since the Second World War. It was a bit higher in the 19th century. It was 5-6% when we had all these movements toward the US, the Germans, the English, and the others. It was 5-6% of the population who were migrants. It's minimal. So why is it so central? Why is it an obsession? Not sure why. But what we can see now is that migration is probably a one way for the populists to put a foot in the door and to access to power and to implement their program. We see it with Trump, we see it in Europe, and we see it in many areas around the world. Using migration and migrants as a way to implement restrictive and authoritarian policies targeting migrants, yes, and then slowly but surely enlarged and widen to the rest of the population. So it's come so obvious. It's been latent over the last 25 years. It's become obvious now with the Trump administration, and now we receive people not only that had been migrants in the US and have been rejected by the US administration, but we also receive people, American citizens, who are helping the migrants. So there is also a communalization of the support of migration. So that's also something which is absolutely central. So I think that we will see, I think it's part of the problematic of the transnational state. It's how now it's contaminating the political life of the different states and especially the receiving states, and how it is creating new fault lines in our societies between pro and anti-migrants. And that's completely new. So once again, I'm not sure why it is the case, but I think we get good reasons to believe that this is becoming a central issue, an axis of understanding our societies today. So with you, I hope that we can advance on these issues and questions, and maybe it will shed a different light on the news when you will open them in the days to come. Yeah.
Sorry, for a more pragmatic question.
Yeah, can you come here? And I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah.
It's just about the last, the final exam.
Oh yeah. All right. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Exams. Okay. So Angela is not here, but you got two series of exams. You get the midterm exam and the final exams, right? And for so your question is about the final exams? Okay. So have you looked at the syllabi? Right. So with the syllabi, you got also suggested readings. All these readings will be put on the Moodle. We haven't done it so far, but we will put it very soon in the days to come. And every one of them, you will have to select one of the readings, and then you will have to write an essay from this reading. Yeah, okay, drawing on these readings, but complemented with other readings. Okay, I don't want a summary, an abstract of the text. I want a critical analysis of the text, drawing and supported by other elements brought by other readings. It's better? And the final exam is the final exam. It's going to be an essay, a topic, and you will have it will be an on-site exam. Okay, yeah, here.
I might be mistaken, but I don't think we've gotten the syllabi yet.
Oh, you don't have the syllabi? Okay. All right. Okay, so, sorry, not my fault. So we will put the syllabi and the detailed structure of the course and the readings on the Moodle in the days to come. Okay?
So the midterm will not be on site in October. We're able to
In October, no, it's going to be, no, you would send me, no, it's not on site. No, it's pick up a reading, a text, one text, and send me an essay. Well, send Angela an essay to of the text, okay? Yeah?
But for the essay, is it supposed to be supported by the other readings from the list, or also
Not necessarily. No. Read the text, and okay. Usually, you will have several readings on the same topic because it's a series of reading per session. But you can also, I don't know. You can, for example, if you got a text on the externalization policies of the border from the EU perspective, you can add a text from the US perspective. Or you can complement your reading with a specific case study or a report or whatever. Yeah.
That midterm thing of the reading, when it's due to it?
It's on the syllabi. Don't remember the date. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
And the last on-table exam is how long? How long is it? The last one.
Okay. You mean the final exam? It's on the syllabi, but if I remember well, it's going to be a 2-hour thing. Yeah. Yeah. I hope it's clear enough. Okay. So it's also the first time I teach this course under this format. So this midterm essay and things are new for me as well. So, but I think it's pretty much straightforward, and I'm not inventing any wheel here. You're good? Okay, no more question? I see you next week, same time, same place.